Hello, readers by eyes and by ears. This is Mari Chen, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are continuing with the reading of The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish, Volume 2, also known as 残疾暴君的掌心鱼宠by Xue Shan Fei Hu. We're covering chapter 60 through 65, so I hope you all enjoy. Let's see what happens in these next few chapters, shall we? Chapter 60, Fishy Eats Barbecue. Liu saw many more trinkets as he continued down the road. Although his mood had taken a bit of a hit from that con artist merchant, so he was really just window shopping. When they arrived at the restaurant he'd been looking forward to, Wang Xi was already waiting in front of the elegant two-story building. The restaurant was called Dream of a Spring Breeze. Liu thought it was unique, especially since this was basically a barbecue restaurant. Wang Xi had booked the best private room upstairs ahead of time and told Prince Sing and Liu that all of the restaurant's signature dishes were waiting for them upstairs. Thinking of the hot barbecued lamb and skewers, Liu sped up. Prince Sing observed all of this. When they arrived at the room, the rich smell of meat came wafting toward them. Liu inhaled deeply. How lovely! Exactly the same as in modern times. But no matter how excited he was, he should let Prince Sing go first. Snatching back his gluttonous soul that was about to fly out of his body, he shifted to the side. But Prince Sing walked over to him so that they could walk in together. Before Liu could react, there was a warmth surrounding his hand. Prince Sing was already pulling him toward the head seat. He couldn't let go, but he couldn't continue to hold Prince Sing's hand either. This was the first time the restaurant had welcomed such an esteemed guest. The owner and several other workers were right in front of them. If he shook off Prince Sing's hand right now, would that embarrass him? By the time he realized Prince Sing's pride had nothing to do with the fish, Prince Sing had already sat down. Tugging on his hand a little, he signaled that Liu should sit down too. Liu immediately noticed something was off. He was sitting right next to Prince Sing. They'd sat together before, when they were drawing, but now he knew Prince Sing liked him, and after the shock of being called consort outside, Liu very quickly realized the position next to the prince should be for the consort. He hadn't even managed to deny the title properly yet. If he sat down now, wouldn't it really be true? Liu was still hesitating when Prince Sing took a leg off the barbecued lamb and put it in a little bowl in front of him. Liu's eyes immediately lit up. "Oh, it's so big, and it smells so good!" He'd never eaten a lamb leg that was roasted so golden brown and crispy. Liu didn't waste any more time thinking. He just sat down in front of the bowl. Next to the bowl were several silver plates holding seasonings like chili powder, cumin, peanuts, and fermented black beans. "Ah, there are so many!" Liu exclaimed, surprised and delighted. "This is the custom in Jinjue," the owner explained. "You can eat the meat by itself or dipped in the seasonings." Liu liked this custom. He immediately began to make his own dipping sauce, starting with a lot of chili powder and cumin, then a little bit of sesame. He then looked up at the owner to ask, "Do you have sesame oil and minced garlic?" He really wanted to ask if they had oyster sauce, but he thought they might not have oyster sauce here in the past, so he asked for sesame oil instead, which was also very fragrant. The owner knew right away that this was someone who knew how to eat and hurried to respond, "Of course, of course." A lot of the nobility didn't like to eat these two condiments, so the owner didn't usually bring them to the table for fear of offending the guests. He immediately asked a server to bring them both out. Liu finished mixing his dipping sauce in no time, feeling very proud of himself. When he glanced at Prince Sing, however, he noticed there was nothing in his bowl. Did Prince Sing not know how to eat this? After all, princes mostly ate steamed or boiled foods, rarely ever barbecue. Although Prince Sing had given him a leg, he himself only grabbed half a slice of white meat. "Your Highness, can I help you?" Liu asked quietly. Prince Sing had been waiting for him to ask. Smiling, he put his bowl next to Li Yu without any hesitation. As Li Yu put seasonings into his bowl, he asked carefully, "Does your highness eat garlic?" Or, "Does your highness eat peanuts?" Meanwhile, his highness was too busy watching him. He randomly nodded or shook his head, not knowing what he was answering to. Before long, a bowl of sauce was presented to him. Prince Ting vaguely remembered the smashed cucumber Xiao Yu had made him. "All right, I made that according to your highness's tastes," said Li Yu. "Try it. It's definitely much better than just eating plain meat." Prince Ting nodded. Under Wang Gonggong's worried gaze, he grabbed a piece of meat, dipped it into the sauce, and ate it without a change in expression. Delicious. The prince smiled, satisfied. Li Yu quickly ate nearly half of the lamb leg, drank some lamb soup, and tried to cut a plate of braised beef. Though his knife skills were lacking and it didn't look very good, it was at least edible, and nearly all of it went into Prince Ting's stomach. They'd been eating for a while when someone suddenly announced that Ye Shurtse had arrived, looking for Prince Ting. Li Yu lowered the lamb leg, which he was holding in one hand. The ever-observant Wang Gonggong handed him a clean cloth. Li Yu wiped his oily fingers and mouth, then looked toward Prince Ting suspiciously. What was Ye Shurtse doing here? Did Prince Ting ask him out to the market and invite Ye Qinghuan as well? Li Yu was thinking too much. Of course Prince Ting hadn't invited any unrelated parties. Ye Shurtse had just heard Prince Ting was eating at Drunken Spring Breeze and wanted to join the fun. As for how Ye Qinghuan found out, Prince Ting's gaze cut across to Wang Xi, who rubbed his nose guiltily. He was Prince Ting's weather vane. If Ye Shurtse asked where Wang Xi was, he would know where Prince Ting was. Prince Ting ordered Wang Xi to let Ye Qinghuan in. Ye Shurtse usually had his dog with him, but today he was finally here with someone else for once. He had brought a small, skinny young gongzi along. This gongzi was a kind of feminine beauty that could rival Chu Yenyu's, with a pair of glistening peach blossom eyes, an upright nose, and small cherry lips. Both of his hands were wrapped tightly around Ye Qinghuan's arm. Li Yu was shocked. In the original book, Ye Qinghuan was an only child, so this youth couldn't be his younger brother. But he was so close to Ye Qinghuan, it was a little weird. Besides, wasn't Ye Shurtse about to get married to the princess? Why was he this close with a young man? Unless... Something occurred to Li Yu. He glanced at Prince Ting suddenly. Was being gay contagious? Ye Qinghuan had never treated Prince Ting as an outsider. Now that he'd brought this young gongzi here, though, he seemed like he was hiding something. He hadn't said anything, but he kept giggling. Li Yu thought it was even more suspicious. At first, the youth next to Ye Qinghuan were surveying the surroundings. Li Yu didn't have any reaction, but when he saw Prince Ting, the youth suddenly covered his mouth and said something in a murmur. But as soon as he spoke, the jig was up. Because what came out of his mouth was a beautiful girl's voice. Prince Ting and Ye Qinghuan stared at each other for a while. It was clear who this person was, but Li Yu was still stuck on this youth is actually a girl in disguise. Why would Ye Shurtse take a girl dressed as a man shopping? Does Ye Shurtse have someone else? Or other melodramatic guesses? Without realizing, he'd spoken his thoughts out loud. Ye Qinghuan chuckled. I don't have anyone else. This is the princess. Huh? Li Yu had been thinking that perhaps Ye Qinghuan had done something unforgivable to the Jinjue princess, but it turned out the youth next to Ye Qinghuan was the princess herself. Li Yu was even more shocked than before. He'd once glanced at this princess from far away at the banquet held in Yangxing Hall. At the time, the princess had spoken out on the fish's behalf and talked back to the second prince. But he'd been inside a fish tank back then and hadn't gotten a good look at the princess. Now that she appeared again, disguised as a man, Li Yu didn't recognize her at all. Hello. The princess of Jinjue nodded at both Prince Ting and Li Yu kindly. In terms of status, Prince Ting wasn't below the princess, so he had no need to bow to her. But Li Yu suddenly considered his own status. He quickly pushed his chair back, but Prince Ting suddenly put his hand on Li Yu's shoulder, not letting him stand up. Ye Qinghuan laughed and said, Li Gongzi, don't worry. We'll all be family sooner or later. The last time Ye Qinghuan went to Prince Ding's manor, he'd found out that Prince Ding had someone he liked already, Li Gongzi. Prince Ding usually kept Li Gongzi well hidden, so Ye Qinghuan had never seen him. He'd wanted to meet him for a long time, so today, when he found out Prince Ding had taken Li Gongzi to the market, Ye Qinghuan immediately decided to take the princess along too. The Jinjue people were more open, so a couple could feel free to meet up and go on dates even before marriage. At first, Ye Qinghuan was very afraid of getting married, but slowly he'd come to accept the idea. He went to the king of Jinjue himself, asking if he and the princess could see each other more to develop the relationship. The king of Jinjue had high hopes for Ye Shurzi, so of course he agreed. On the other hand, the princess of Jinjue initially didn't like this husband that the emperor had called steady and mature. But after she found out Ye Shurzi had a dog, the princess started seeing Ye Qinghuan in a new light. This princess had many pets growing up, such as cats and bunnies. She thought when she got married, her husband's family wouldn't let her have pets anymore, but to her surprise, her fiancé shared the same interest as her. Besides, Ye Shurzi was someone who stood out amongst his peers. Now, the little princess's feelings for Ye Qinghuan were growing by the day. Like Ye Qinghuan, this was the first time the Jinjue princess had met Li Gongzi. At first, she was very reserved, not knowing what to say. But the princess still remembered the little carp at the banquet, so when she saw the fish's owner, she was extremely excited. "Prince Ding, did you bring the fish this time?" she asked, curious. Prince Ding's fish was actually right next to him. Li Yu and Prince Ding were both thinking the same thing, but Li Yu was contemplating whether or not he could bring the crystal bottle out and let the princess see it without somehow getting close. While Li Yu racked his brain, Prince Ding just smiled, giving Wang Xi a lazy glance. Wang Gongong immediately lied for his master without blinking. "Unfortunately, Princess, His Highness didn't bring the fish out this time." The fish, who had been left behind, sat in his chair and kept glancing uneasily at Prince Ding's hand. The golden chain of the crystal bottle was clearly still wrapped around his hand, but when he ordered Wang Xi to lie, he didn't even blink. Why wouldn't this asshole let the princess see the fish? Though he guessed not letting her see did help him out. Heh. Li Yu didn't need to worry about the princess noticing anything. Faced with a gentle rejection, the princess was just like her fiancé, Ye Qinghuan. She paid no mind to Prince Ding's coldness and said, smiling, "Can I see it next time?" Clearly, the princess not only wanted to see him, she wanted to pet him as well. This princess's beauty was unmatched, and when she smiled, she looked even more stunning. Unfortunately, Prince Ding wasn't someone who would give in just because they were a girl or a relative. He shook his head decisively. No way. Go pet yourself." Although Prince Ding wouldn't let the princess pet his fish, 2 chopsticks were still added to the barbecue squad. Ye Qinghuan wanted to bring the princess to join in on the fun, partly because he thought the princess might be homesick since she had been away from Jinjue for a while. This market and restaurant were filled with the feeling of Jinjue, so he thought the princess would like it. As expected, when the little princess saw a table laden with beef and lamb, her eyes curved into crescent moons, and she happily talked and laughed with him. The princess elegantly ordered a servant to cut off the lamb leg and nodded toward Ye Qinghuan. He happily gestured for her to go ahead. The princess immediately rolled up her sleeves and grabbed the leg. With astonishing speed, the princess demolished the lamb leg like a whirlwind. Then she wiped her mouth, put the bone on the plate, and elegantly asked her servant to cut another. Ye Qinghuan looked toward Prince Ding, lips trembling, only to see Prince Ding's Li Gongzi also gnawing on a leg of lamb. He had one hand on a leg and one hand on his chopsticks. There was a smear of sauce at the corner of his lips. Li Gongzi was just about to lick it off when Prince Ding suddenly leaned over, obscuring Ye Qinghuan's view. It was a while before Prince Ding sat back down. Li Gongzi's fair face was bright red, but most importantly, the sauce on his lip was gone, and his lips were a lot redder. Prince Ding licked his lips happily. Ye Qinghuan turned to look at his fiancée, who remained just as elegant. He screamed in his heart. In terms of shamelessness, he lost again. Chapter 61. Getting Revenge for the Fish. Liu had been focused on gnawing on his lamb leg when Prince Ting suddenly stole a kiss. Now he was both embarrassed and annoyed. He felt like the original book was full of lies. Otherwise, how could Chu Yanyu end up being so secretly evil while the tyrant was actually a huge asshole that liked to take advantage of him whenever he wanted to? Why did he have to kiss him while they were eating? Couldn't a person be allowed to live? And it was right in front of Ye Shutze and the Princess of Jinjue. Liu couldn't calm himself down fast enough to keep up with Prince Jing's bullying. The princess was focused on eating just like he was, so perhaps she didn't see. But Ye Shutze's eyes were wide open, looking like he'd been struck by lightning. He definitely saw. Sob, sob, sob. How was he supposed to face anyone after this? What a huge asshole! Liu raised a hand, furiously wiping at his mouth where the asshole prince had kissed him. His eyes were round with anger, and sparks seemed to fly from them. He'd already regretted the times he kicked and hit Prince Ting when he got worked up. He had to remain calm. He couldn't act rashly. Besides, to be honest, fighting was no use. Prince Ting was taller and stronger than him. He could easily pick him up like a little chick. Sob! Prince Ting couldn't help but chuckle when he noticed him holding in his explosive reaction. Perhaps Xiao Yu himself hadn't even noticed that he was getting more and more used to being close to him. Neither the Princess of Jinjue nor Ye Qinghuan knew Li Gongzi very well. In order to ease the mood and lessen the awkwardness, Ye Qinghuan tried to smooth things over by asking Li Yu to introduce himself. Li Yu's face was still red as he gave his name and age. When Ye Qinghuan found out Li Gongzi's name was literally just fish, he finally understood. Prince Ting didn't just like fish, he even found someone whose name was Fish. Not only had Prince Ting won, Ye Qinghuan wasn't even competing in the same bracket. He smiled, but privately he wanted to grind his teeth. The Princess of Jinjue was delighted to learn that Li Gongzi looked after Prince Ting's fish for him. Xiao Yu, Li Gongzi, why don't you bring the fish over next time? She said. She might not be able to convince Prince Ting, but the clever princess could tell Li Gongzi was easier to ask. Li Yu awkwardly chuckled a few times. She wanted him to bring himself to the princess's manor? No, thank you. Someone else's house of gold or silver was nothing compared to Prince Ting's doghouse. Li Yu didn't want to go anywhere. Because there were 2 additional guests, there wasn't quite enough food on the table. Ye Qinghuan quickly ordered a daikon stew beef, while the princess ordered a lamb meatball soup. Soon, both dishes were brought upstairs. 2 plates of bright green cilantro and spring onions came along with the dishes. Prince Ting and Ye Qinghuan liked neither, while the princess and Li Yu liked cilantro and spring onions respectively. The 2 of them divided up the condiments without discussion. They stared at each other in understanding, exchanging a knowing smile, and their food-buddy relationship was decided just like that. Prince Ting suddenly felt like he couldn't keep a firm grip on the crystal bottle. The Princess of Jinjue was a warm-hearted person. Due to her relationship with Ye Qinghuan, she already considered Li Yu part of her family. As they chatted, she found out Li Yu had run into a con artist. Her eyebrows shot up as they twisted together, and she said angrily, How dare they? How could someone like that come from Jinjue? At her dainty call, 2 guards dressed as servants immediately entered the room. The princess ordered them to knock that merchant down a few pegs. Li Yu thought there was no need. He thanked the princess for her kindness hurriedly, then recounted how he'd already messed with the merchant. That's not good enough, said Ye Qinghuan, who also wanted to get revenge for Li Yu. That skimmer tried to pick on you because you were alone. We should teach him a lesson to prevent him from doing that to others. Yeah, exactly. The princess smiled and clapped her hands together. Li Gongzi, my people will take care of it. Don't worry about it. Li Yu knew he wouldn't be able to convince the 2 so easily, so he turned his gaze to Wang Xi, seeking help. Wang Xi also wanted to teach the scammer a lesson, but Li Gongzi was His Highness's precious beloved, so he couldn't just say no to him. A light bulb went off in Wang Xi's head as he said, This old servant will listen to the master. Wang Xi's master, Prince Ting, was currently leisurely sipping on a cup of tea. He heard everything Ye Qinghuan and the Princess of Jinjue had said, but he showed no reaction. Li Yu was a little surprised. Prince Ting had even intervened when he was wrapping the gold chains a bit too tightly around his hand. Why was he so impassive now? As soon as he thought that, Li Yu felt embarrassed. Was he under Prince Ting's spell? Did he think it was natural for Prince Ting to want to stand up for him now? Prince Ting was Prince Ting, and he was himself. If Prince Ting wasn't going to step in, he couldn't force him to do it just because Li Yu felt he was in the right. Prince Ting clearly didn't want to trouble himself with this, and Li Yu wasn't able to convince Yeshurtsa and the princess, so all he could do was watch helplessly as they gave their guards the order. Soon after, the guards returned with some news, their expressions strange. Just now, the merchant had suffered a grave injury and was being taken away. They'd asked around, and apparently the merchant had been kidnapped with a cloth bag thrown over his head. He was taken to a dark alley and beaten up, left with a swollen face, all of his teeth missing, and a dislocated jaw. He couldn't speak anymore, so it seemed like he wouldn't be able to scam anyone anymore either. Someone must have taken revenge because he'd scammed too many people. Ye Qinghuan was very satisfied, but the princess was a little confused. After all, it wasn't her people who had done it. After a bit of thought, the princess said, "Next time you run into a scammer like that, you must tell me right away." Feeling grateful, Li Yu bowed slightly with his hands clasped. "Thank you, princess. Yeshurtsa." Prince Ting's gaze never left Li Yu. When Li Yu thanked the other two, Prince Ting's face looked like it had been struck by a blast of cold wind. He got up and pulled Li Yu's clasped hands down. Ye Qinghuan had known Prince Ting since they were little and was more or less used to Prince Ting's temper. He chuckled. "Tianchi, don't be so selfish." Prince Ting gave him a side eye and turned to leave, still holding Li Yu's hand. Li Yu estimated it was about time for him to transform anyway, and he had to allow some time for the trip back. He knew he couldn't stay out much longer, so he reluctantly bade goodbye to the princess and Ye Qinghuan. "Li Gongzi, Ye Qinghuan and I will soon be married," the princess said, smiling. "When the time comes, you should come drink our marriage wine." The princess of Jinjue and Ye Qinghuan's marriage wine. Li Yu's heart suddenly skipped a beat, thinking about the princess's ending in the book. The princess had married the sixth prince, and in the end, the sixth prince's entire family was killed. The princess had been implicated as well and was exiled to a place that was bitterly cold, never to return to Jinjue. At the time, it was because Prince Ting was angry at the sixth prince. Now that Ye Qinghuan was fine and the little princess was about to marry Ye Qinghuan, she wouldn't anger Prince Ting and be punished anymore. Right? He was really making a difference as a transmigrated fish. But for some reason, Prince Ting had never told Ye Qinghuan that Li Yu was the one who had written the letter. Either way, Li Yu didn't care. It wasn't like he needed Yeshurtsa to be grateful toward him. Seeing two people he had directly and indirectly saved getting married was enough for him. Li Yu couldn't help but feel proud. Li Yu smiled and nodded seriously. "Sure, thanks for the invite. I'll definitely come." The carriage traveled quickly back to Prince Ting's manor with another bout of shaking and jolting. Li Yu was no longer the unprepared little fish from earlier. As soon as the carriage began to shake, he decided to hold tightly onto the gaps in the wood of the carriage. This way, he wouldn't knock into the person sitting across from him, no matter how hard the carriage shook. But when Prince Ting noticed he'd rather grab onto the carriage than touch him, his expression darkened. There were some things that needed to be said. Li Yu gathered his thoughts. "Your Highness, can we have a talk?" Prince Ting went stiff, his jaw tightening. But before he could refuse, Li Yu continued. "I know that your Highness asked Wang Gongong to plan this trip to the market. I thanked the princess and Yeshurtsa, but I should thank you too. Thank you for bringing me out to take my mind off things, for always taking care of me, and everything else. Li Yu looked down, trying to control his emotions. He said, as calmly as he could, "I've been trying to carefully think about your feelings for me for a long time, but you keep interrupting me." Li Yu smiled lightly, feeling like he was being silly. "You've truly been good to me and made me happy, but you've also made me afraid of losing you. I wasn't like this before." Li Yu didn't know what had gotten into him lately. He was an open-minded young man, even more sensitive than girls could be. He thought his feelings toward Prince Ting were limited to that of a pet toward its owner. Those feelings weren't romantic, but now that Prince Sting was doting on him in his human form every day, he was starting to have trouble telling the difference. So although he tried to calmly think things through these last few days, he hadn't reached any real conclusion. Should he keep trying to think things through? Would that get him anywhere? Li Yu thought he might just be running away, because the issue between him and Prince Sting wasn't as simple as whether or not he liked him. He was a modern person on the inside. He could understand a man liking another man, and he wasn't against spending time with Prince Sing. Sometimes he even liked it. He was happy to be bi or even gay. His sexual orientation wasn't the problem. The problem was that Prince Sting was a character in a book while he was a person from the modern era. Prince Sting was a tyrant and he was a fish. Though it had nothing to do with sexual orientation, the distance between them was enough to fit 1,000 mountains and rivers. But those mountains and rivers weren't so easy to turn away from. "I'm sorry, Your Highness." Li Yu struggled for a while and decided to just say it. If he kept hiding it, he'd just seem like a dick. He wanted to give himself some more time. He hoped time could force him to make the decision he couldn't make today. "You treat me very well. Can you give me a little time to figure out the relationship between us? I don't know. Prince Sting looked deeply into his eyes. Before Li Yu could say any more in rejection, he suddenly sprang forward. With a slam, Li Yu was pushed against the wall of the carriage. The carriage shook once, but Li Yu didn't feel any pain. Prince Sting's arm was wrapped around him, cushioning his back and taking the impact for him. The man's handsome face was reflected in Li Yu's pupils, getting closer and closer. Li Yu swallowed the words he wanted to say, feeling sure he knew what the other person wanted to do. He shut his eyes helplessly. But after a long time, Prince Sting only held him in his arms, unmoving. When Li Yu opened his eyes again, he realized Prince Sting was smiling. Li Yu was furious. This asshole was playing with him, and he thought he was going to kiss him. Li Yu's face burned. He wanted to get away, but Prince Sting held him even tighter. When he was about to turn his head away, Prince Sting left a gentle, comforting kiss on his forehead. Li Yu remembered something he'd heard once. A kiss to the forehead represented a love that was pure. Prince Sting likes me. Li Yu's heart was racing. Prince Sting turned Li Yu to face him. Once again, he was so close. His inky black eyes seemed to be enchanted. Li Yu thought he was going to be sucked in with no chance of escape. After kissing his forehead, Prince Sting's lips passed over his nose and stopped an inch away from his lips. The two of them held each other in the tiny, cramped carriage. They could hear each other's breathing and even each other's fierce heartbeats. Li Yu knew what Prince Sting wanted to do. If he wanted to, he could avoid it. But he didn't. In that moment, he realized with a start that he was hoping he would kiss him. When those lips finally landed on his, Li Yu felt like his heart sighed. When Prince Sting did something so intimate with him, his first reaction wasn't to get out of there. It was just a bit of shyness. If he was annoyed, it was because he was afraid other people would see and say things, He was afraid of a lot of things, and he got angry easily. But he was never truly mad at Prince Sting. In fact, he looked forward to it. What was he supposed to do? It seemed like he really did like him a bit. When Prince Sting kissed him, it felt like there was a little boat floating around in his heart. That was the feeling of love, right? Chapter 62. Fish Likes You Too. That was probably their longest kiss. Li Yu did regret it halfway through. After all, he'd only just accepted that he liked Prince Sting, but they weren't officially together yet. They couldn't just kiss until the world ended at any tiny spark of hope. But every time he wanted to interrupt, the man holding him would smile and keep kissing him. He'd never seen Prince Sting so happy. This was the first time Li Yu had accepted his kiss and didn't push him away. He couldn't help himself. Prince Sting had closed his eyes, his lashes trembling. It was like they had little hooks constantly tugging at his heart. With this one kiss, it was like his heart finally opened up. His heart kept beating and beating as sweetness oozed out. He thought he must like Prince Sting. What else could this burning hot feeling be? Li Yu's heart trembled, and he suddenly accepted it. So, he liked Prince Sting after all. It was his own fault for not realizing sooner, for not realizing what was in his heart. His eyes were a little wet. With a shaking hand, he touched Prince Sting's lips. After they stopped kissing, Prince Sting kissed his fingers devotedly, then put his arms around his neck. Before, Prince Sting was holding him. Now they were hugging each other. Prince Sting wrapped his arms lightly around the skinny figure in his arms. He hesitated for a moment, but he decided not to touch the string of pearls on the youth's waist for now. The entire world quieted down. All that was left was this tiny space in the carriage, where they could kiss tentatively, clumsily. At some point, the horses had stopped. No matter how they enjoyed that brief moment of warmth, it wasn't enough. All of a sudden, Li Yu let out an alarmed noise. The transformation countdown had exploded in his head. He was out of time. He had to leave. Just a moment ago, Li Yu had been pouting, unwilling to leave. Now, he pushed Prince Sting away, pulling Prince Sting's hand out of his string of pearls and glared angrily at Prince Sting. But what he said wasn't very threatening at all. I still have things to take care of. I need to leave now. Next time. No, I'll see you tomorrow. Li Yu rushed to jump off the carriage. Prince Sting immediately realized Xiao Yu was about to transform, but Prince Sting took a quick glance at the crystal bottle next to him. The carp spirit's other form was floating inside quietly. If the crystal bottle was here, where was Xiao Yu going to go? He couldn't let the carp spirit transform outside. Confused and disoriented, Prince Sting immediately grabbed Li Yu. He could see that the fish was very confused. He clearly wasn't ready to come clean yet, but Prince Sting was already very satisfied with Xiao Yu's kiss. He patted Li Yu lightly on the shoulder, pointed at himself, and then pointed outside. Then he got off the carriage. Wang Gongong, who was waiting outside the carriage, caught Prince Sting's gaze and immediately started explaining for his master in a loud voice. His Highness has urgent business and has to rush back right now. We're leaving the carriage and fish to you, Gongzi. All right. So Prince Sting needed to leave too. That meant he could stay in the carriage. Time was of the essence. Li Yu didn't have time to keep thinking about it, so he hurriedly made a noise of agreement. Watching Prince Sting disappear into the distance, though, Li Yu paused and gathered all the courage that he didn't even know he had. He yelled at Prince Sting, "Your Highness, I wasn't angry just now." Hearing that, Prince Sting's heart stuttered. Then he turned back to smile at him. Li Yu waved wildly, then put the curtains down. He opened up the crystal bottle. In the next second, he was already a fish. That was too dangerous. He almost got caught just now. Li Yu immediately put his new clothes and plushie into his inventory. With that taken care of, he was about to jump into the crystal bottle when a hairpin rolled by. He couldn't lose the hairpin Prince Sting gave him. It was a gift. Li Yu couldn't bear to just put it away, so he grabbed the hairpin and jumped into the crystal bottle with it. In the water, Li Yu curled around the jade hairpin, running his mouth along it in delight. There was a fish just as cute as him at the end of this hairpin. When he first received it, he hadn't had time to play with it. To be honest, he'd been thinking about it this whole time. Li Yu only put the hairpin in his inventory after he'd spent a while fooling around with it. Now, it was time for him to think about him and Prince Sting. He never expected he would catch feelings for Prince Sting. Although Li Yu's reaction time was a little slow, he knew how he felt now. It was as if a stone that was weighing down heavily on his heart had suddenly flipped over. But it turned out that after some conflict came relief and comfort. It turned out all of his unusual behaviors were because he liked Prince Sting too. Oh my God. Li Yu was giddy with happiness. Realizing this truth was a little sweet. It was so sweet, Li Yu blew a whole string of bubbles. There was nothing to play with in the crystal bottle, nor was there an ornamental mountain for him to wreck. So all Li Yu could do was swim in circles in excitement until he nearly broke the bottle. No, I can't think about this. Li Yu immediately stopped. He liked Prince Sting, but what was he supposed to do now? He'd been so conflicted about why Prince Sting had started to like him that he never even thought about the possibility of returning his feelings. He'd just assumed there was too much distance between the two of them, and there was no way they could be together. After all, he was a fish and Prince Sting was a human. He was a transmigrator and Prince Sting was a character in a book. Li Yu still remembered all the reasons he had given himself, but looking at them now, weren't they all just obstacles to his feelings? He'd convinced himself with these reasons before, saying they weren't suitable, and there were countless dangers waiting for them. If he really decided to be with Prince Ting, then he was no longer a bystander in this book. He was a participant, part of the book itself. This meant he was now completely part of this world, part of Prince Ting's life. But he was someone from the modern era. There were many things he and Prince Ting differed on. They might quarrel or even fight. Most modern people understood that just because someone caught feelings for someone, it didn't mean they'd last forever. Because of people's hearts, their environments, society, there were so many factors that determined whether a relationship would end in happiness or tragedy. Not everything could be solved by just liking the other person. When modern people fell in love, if things weren't going well, they'd break up quickly. But if he truly entered Prince Ting's life, things would no longer be up to him. In ancient times, the emperor's word was final. His life would be in Prince Ting's hands. They were in love now, but once he was stamped with Prince Ting's seal, there was no way he could just leave if they were no longer good for each other. There was nowhere to run. He knew and understood all this. They were all reasons to stop himself. There were millions of reasons standing in his way, and only one that made him want to walk toward Prince Ting. But just the one was enough. They liked each other. Li Yu remembered that in modern times he'd once heard someone say, "What luck it must take to meet someone that you like, who also likes you back." He was a youth who'd just experienced his first love. He really couldn't give it up when he'd only just gotten a taste. Li Gongzi. Li Gongzi. Li Yu had been a fish again for a while now. Wang Xi, on Prince Ting's orders, had come to help Li Yu after waiting about 15 minutes, but obviously Li Gongzi couldn't respond. Wang Xi opened the curtain to the carriage, only to find a crystal bottle sitting on the floor. Next to it was a letter. Wang Xi grabbed it and took a look. Did Li Gongzi leave again? Every time Li Yu transformed, he'd just leave without saying anything. He was afraid it'd start to get suspicious, so this time he'd prepared a letter before they left the manor. The contents basically said he had something urgent to take care of and had to leave. Wang Xi was used to it by now. His only concern was giving Li Gongzi's letter to Prince Ting. Wang Xi put away the letter, picked up the crystal bottle, and chuckled to the little carp inside. Master Xiao Yu, I'm the only one left. Let me take you home right now. The carriage started moving once again. Behind it, just a few meters away, was a tall figure riding a horse. It kept following the carriage, quietly protecting the person inside. As soon as Li Yu was back in the manor, he entered the system. It'd been a while since he last entered the moped system. The quest menu was still open. As he faced the screen, Li Yu's emotions were complicated. After all, he was the one who didn't want to do the quests anymore, but he was also the one who was now back looking for the system. System, how long until I can go back to being a human for good? Li Yu asked. After you complete the Revitalizing quest line, the reward will allow the user to return permanently to human form, the system replied. So that was it. Li Yu was glad the system was an emotionless program that couldn't feel awkward. It didn't ignore him or make fun of him for avoiding it. He had to reluctantly admit that if he didn't have the moped system, he might have become the noble consort's 1,000 carp soup long ago. Now that he understood his own feelings, he couldn't help but acknowledge that, despite the fact that the system had made him complete all those tasks, his feelings toward Prince Ting and the way Prince Ting treated him were all real. He couldn't lie to himself any more. Fine. As long as I can turn back to a human, I'll continue with the missions. Now that he liked Prince Ting, he no longer had any hesitations about completing the quests. Plus, they'd let him go back to being a human, so why wouldn't he do them? Unexpectedly, now that he'd changed his perspective, terrible news became great news. Then, does the user want the reward for the Indulging quest? Asked the system. Li Yu hesitated, then remembered the reward for the indulging quest was one of Prince Sing's secrets and a fish plush. He'd already gotten the plush. As for Prince Sing's secret, did he have any secrets that Li Yu didn't know about? Now that his attitude had changed, he couldn't help but want to know more about the person he liked. Maybe the secret is that he knows your identity? Li Yu cleared his throat. It was a reward. There was no reason not to take it. The system opened a window in front of him, and Li Yu realized the reward was a multiple-choice question. There were 4 secrets to choose from, set up in a square grid. The squares representing the options weren't filled in using the system's usual color scheme. Instead, a different scene was playing in each square. The first was in the palace. It looked unfamiliar to Li Yu, so he skipped it. The second was a house. This one looked a little familiar. Then the last 2. One was an endless vortex, and the last one was a face. With a jolt, Li Yu recognized himself. Prince Sing had a secret related to him? Then what could it be? Okay. Recalling the confession Prince Sing had carved into the walls of the manor, Li Yu felt like his brain was about to start smoking. He figured the last secret probably wasn't a secret to him anymore. He had to make good use of this chance, so he thought it would be better if he could see a secret that he might already have some context on and chose number 2. Once he'd confirmed his choice, Li Yu was suddenly surrounded by smoke. Did he enter an illusion again? Li Yu looked around and realized this was different from the time he met the chubby little kid. In that illusion, he could swim around as a fish, and everything seemed incredibly real. But this time, no matter how he struggled, he couldn't move. This was Prince Sing's secret, he realized. He was just a bystander. These really were just memories. The house he'd chosen was right before his eyes. Now he got a good look at it. Li Yu realized with surprise that this was the second prince's place. No wonder it looked familiar. He soon saw Prince Sing approach, carrying the crystal bottle. This was when Prince Sing had taken him along to scold the second prince. What happened then that he didn't know about? Li Yu watched Prince Sing put the fish plush into the second prince's soup again. Rewatching this scene, he still felt incredibly gratified. He recalled they left quickly after Prince Sing was done with the second prince. Did something happen after that? As he continued to watch, he noticed Prince Sing shift the crystal bottle to his other hand and make a gesture toward Wang Xi. Wang Xi led a group of people to force the second prince to drink himself into a stupor. Once the second prince was in a daze, Wang Xi pushed him into the pond. The second prince hadn't fallen into the pond by accident. Prince Sing had ordered it. The memory stopped abruptly, and Li Yu returned to the system. It was a secret because it was something he didn't know. He could understand Prince Sing taking action against the second prince. After all, the second prince and Prince Sing had a lot of personal grudges, and he tried to harm the house of Changle. But Xiao Yu was just a fish. Prince Sing was allowed to handle anyone however he wanted. Why did he specifically take the fish elsewhere first? Was it that Prince Sing didn't want him to see it? But he'd already used the fish plush to teach the second prince a lesson, and the fish was there for that. But Wait! Li Yu suddenly realized that Prince Sing hadn't done anything violent in front of the fish for a very long time. Now that he thought back on it carefully, ages ago, Prince Sing had killed a female assassin in front of him, which had frightened him quite badly. After that, he'd never seemed to beat or kill anyone again. Perhaps that was the real purpose of the secret. He thought Prince Sing's personality had changed, but the reality was that those things never stopped happening. Prince Sing was a product of these ancient times and had his own ways of dealing with things. There were some things he had to do, but just for the fish's peace of mind, he'd started doing them secretly. Li Yu didn't know if he should be angry or moved. No, wait. Why did it feel like this huge asshole treated Xiao Yu better than Li Yu? Chapter 63. The Fish Chooses Love. Now was not the time to dwell on these things. Li Yu hurriedly forced himself back on track and focused on the next step of the revitalized quest. The next step: be inseparable from the Tyrant. Hint: none. Li Yu had intended to be motivated and seriously try to tackle the main quest, but now, seeing this next step, "Come out, system! I promise I won't kill you!" Li Yu could interpret indulging as drinking, but how was he supposed to become inseparable from the Tyrant? They hadn't even started dating yet. Besides, this main quest was probably going to keep going for a while. If they had to be inseparable now, how were the steps going to progress? Li Yu's eye twitched. He had a bad feeling about where this was going. This inseparable quest, let's wait a while. Li Yu exited the system like his tail was on fire. While he was in the system, his fish body would temporarily lose consciousness. By the time Li Yu came to, he was facing an enlarged, handsome face. Prince Sing, who'd had to take care of urgent business, had already returned. He was holding the box, about to feed the fish. He hadn't felt it when they were kissing in the carriage, but Li Yu felt a little embarrassed suddenly seeing the object of his affection. In his embarrassment, his brain and fins both shut down, and he sank to the bottom. Prince Sing hurried to steady the fish. Li Yu stared at him in a daze. His heart felt like a pool of spring water with waves of affection rippling in the wind. No wonder he always thought this person was good-looking. It was because he liked him. That was what that feeling was. Li Yu suddenly leapt up like he was startled. He swam a few anxious laps, then dove headfirst into the ornamental mountain, leaving only his tail visible. This all happened much faster than when he got mad or ran away. It was a good thing the fish was covered in scales, otherwise his entire body would have visibly blushed. Prince Sting was a little worried that the fish was hiding in the mountain again. He was afraid the fish might be stuck or perhaps mad at him. He tried to flick the fish's tail. It flapped dramatically, then disappeared into the caves as well. The lesson Prince Sting had learned from the last few days was that he had to coax the fish slowly. He couldn't rush it. He smiled, thinking back to the kiss in the carriage. Although Xiao Yu hadn't been able to finish what he wanted to say, Prince Sting was still in an unexpectedly good mood. Li Yu hid in the mountain, occasionally listening to the noises outside and thinking about his future. Before he was aware of his feelings, he'd felt conflicted and indecisive. But now that he knew his heart, like anyone experiencing their first love, he was a soldier striding bravely forward. No matter how treacherous the path was ahead, it was all insignificant to him now. He'd only found out how deeply his feelings ran when he realized he liked Prince Sing. This day was just like any other, but now that he knew, merely seeing Prince Sing overwhelmed Li Yu with emotion. He liked him so much, he had to keep pursuing this relationship. Even if this path was hard, if he didn't at least try to walk it, how could he think about the future? But he couldn't date Prince Sting as a fish. Currently, he only had 2 hours a day to be a human. That wasn't enough time to be flustered and embarrassed. He had to permanently turn into a human as soon as possible. Before that, he shouldn't get too close to Prince Sting. He should try to maintain some distance, even if he liked Prince Sting. He couldn't let the prince find out about his secret. Oh, he could set up some rules with Prince Sing. From what he'd seen over the last few days, Prince Sing likely wouldn't deny him. They could hold hands, go out on dates, kiss. They'd already kissed plenty of times, so that should be fine. Then, what about bedroom activities? Li Yu had secretly read porn before, and there was a slight itch in his heart. He was a typical young man. Of course this was something he was anticipating. To be honest, he was no longer against the idea of Prince Sing getting close to him. It had all just been a misunderstanding before, since he hadn't been able to recognize his own feelings in time. Now, he wasn't just not against such acts, he was privately looking forward to it a little. They were both adults, and things should naturally progress as their relationship developed. Li Yu's face was red as he imagined himself suddenly turning into a fish during a certain rigorous activity. Such a scene would most certainly be so beautiful, one couldn't bear to look at it. If that happened, both him and Prince Sing might gush blood. In order to prevent such accidents from happening, Li Yu temporarily put an X over bedroom activities. Men should really do their best to keep it in their pants, he thought regretfully. Once he finished the main quest, he wouldn't have any more reservations. Li Yu was thrilled and filled with anticipation. He was using a small rock inside the mountain as his pillow, and he kept rolling around the top of it. By the time he barely managed to fall asleep, the rock had almost become smooth. When he woke up, Prince Ting was gone. As it turned out, bright and early that morning, Prince Ting had received the Emperor's request for him in the palace. He had something important to discuss. When Prince Ting returned last night, the fish was embarrassed and stayed in his cave. When Prince Ting received the Emperor's edict, the fish was still snoring away and didn't notice anything. Prince Ting touched the fish's tail where it was poking outside the mountain and thoughtfully entered the palace by himself. He didn't want to wake the fish. Liu Yu was sensible. He knew that seeing the Emperor was important, but the original plot was now in shambles, and he had no idea where they were currently at. The third and sixth princes had both been punished and were now trying to keep a low profile. Perhaps the Emperor just happened to be feeling sentimental and wanted to catch up with Prince Ting. But it was also possible that there was an update on the investigation of the nursery rhyme and fake monks, and the Emperor wanted to make things up to Prince Ting. Liu Yu didn't think this trip to the palace meant any bad news, so he gradually calmed down. Calculating when Prince Ting would be back, he transformed into a human. Putting the plush into the tank, he picked a set of silver robes that he liked very much and adjusted the collar. He still had the jade hairpin Prince Ting had given him, but in order to use a hairpin, one first had to put their hair up. Liu Yu didn't know how, and Wang Gonggong had gone to the palace with Prince Ting. He was too embarrassed to ask anyone else, so he had to just do his best. He found a silver hair ribbon, pulled his hair up into a ponytail, then stuck the hairpin into it, leaving the little fish at the end sticking out. Liu Yu nodded at himself in the bronze mirror. He thought he looked quite beautiful. Prince Ting hadn't returned yet, so Liu Yu sat at the table, smoothed out a piece of paper, grabbed a brush, and wrote everything he'd thought of last night down while he waited for him. Just as Liu Yu thought, the Emperor's imperial guards had found out that the third prince was the one who first spread the nursery rhyme implicating Prince Ting. They even found multiple witnesses and brought them before the Emperor so he could question them personally. The Emperor had once again been driven into a fit of anger thanks to the third prince. It was then that the director of the Imperial Astrological Bureau, Sun Simiao, just so happened to report that an investigation had revealed that officials of the Bureau had been bribed, and the person who had bribed them was the third prince, Mu Tianming. The Emperor finally understood why the third prince had kept questioning the Imperial Astrological Bureau out of the blue. He was creating an opportunity for the people he'd bribed. The third prince had tried to frame Prince Ting with the nursery rhymes and imposter monks, and he even had his own people in the Imperial Astrological Bureau. He'd broken all of the Emperor's taboos in one go. The Emperor was planning on punishing the third prince again when he found the opportunity, but the third prince beat him to it by doing something else stupid. These days, the third prince's injuries were improving, so he started reporting daily to the imperial study room under the supervision of the servants to study with the younger princes. The third prince was very unhappy about this. It sounded nice when the emperor told him to go study, but he wasn't a child anymore. In the royal family, adult princes were supposed to share the emperor's burden and help him solve issues, but he was stuck studying with his little brothers. If the emperor never said anything, when was this supposed to end? Didn't that mean he'd never be involved in court? When the second prince was first punished, he'd been put on house arrest. He was kept on house arrest until he was no longer able to think clearly, but the emperor never let him out again. And after that, there was no need to mention the second prince anymore. A little too late, the third prince found himself both afraid and full of regret. He asked the sixth prince for help, but the sixth prince, who suffered the same beating he had and was trying to recover, asked him to settle down and try to keep lying low. But the third prince was unwilling to continue wasting time like this. His mother, Consort Zhang, was in regular contact with the wives of several officials. Mu Tianming used this connection to ask these officials to beg for his leniency in court, asking the emperor to give him back some responsibilities. He wasn't hoping for anything glamorous. He just wanted to appear in front of the emperor so the emperor didn't forget he existed. After some discussion, the officials wrote a document to the emperor saying the third prince regretted his mistake and was willing to help the emperor. They even asked an academic at the Hanlin Academy who was very good at writing to write it. so that he could describe the third prince's recent situation as pitifully as possible and hopefully take advantage of the emperor's fatherly affection to move him to tears. When the emperor received the document, it wasn't clear whether he felt touched, but he was furious that several officials would write for the third prince together. He just discovered the third prince had bribed the Imperial Astrological Bureau, and now several courtiers were begging for his forgiveness on his behalf. The emperor was especially wary of princes getting too close to officials. Was the third prince trying to put pressure on the emperor even though he wasn't even anywhere close to the position of crown prince? All he did was order the third prince to study for a few days to teach him some patience. The third prince couldn't even understand that. How could he trust his son to self-reflect? The emperor made a note of all the officials involved. The third prince never received the emperor's forgiveness, and now, not only did the emperor order him to study with the 7th and 8th princes, he also had him copy the classic of filial piety every day before handing it in to the Grand Secretary for review. The third prince was thoroughly humiliated, and all the officials involved were either fired or moved to other positions. It took the third prince a long time to realize what he'd done. When he went to look for the sixth prince again, the sixth prince no longer had any words of advice. It is easy to lose something, but hard to get it back. I told you to lay low, but you wouldn't listen. You just had to go dig this hole deeper for yourself. After he dealt with the third prince, the emperor considered his sons. None of his adult sons were focused on the right things, and his 2 younger sons were still too young to tell how they'd fare in the future. Although the guards had already proved that the sixth prince was working for the third prince, and the emperor was currently disgusted with the third prince, the sixth prince might still turn out all right with a bit of warning. But he just couldn't get over his anger enough to fully commit to training the sixth prince for the throne. As a result, the emperor couldn't help but think of his other son, Prince Jing. Thinking of Prince Jing's calligraphy, as well as his skill in playing Go, he knew Prince Jing was very capable. But he was born mute, and in order to protect him, the emperor had never heavily depended on him. But what had all his painstaking efforts truly accomplished? The second and third princes were short-sighted, taking action against Prince Jing and the people around him. They probably thought Prince Jing was an easy target since the emperor didn't seem to value him. Since they didn't care about respecting him, the emperor also didn't want to consider their feelings. If Prince Jing wanted to stand strong before the new emperor, he didn't necessarily need the new emperor's pity. He could stand tall on his own. Either way, the emperor didn't have to pick a crown prince anytime soon. After all the third prince's dirty antics, he needed to reassure Prince Jing. Once he'd summoned Prince Jing to the palace, the emperor said quite a lot to him, letting out sigh after sigh. In the end, he ordered Prince Jing to assume a position in the Ministry of Works. Prince Jing just wanted to go home, but instead he was smacked by a job falling into his lap. The emperor continued, "Many things have happened in court recently, and everything requires my attention. Tianchi, why don't you help me? I remember Tian Zhao, Tian Ming, and the others started attending court at 12 years old. It's already a little late for you." It was just boring busy work. Prince Jing nodded, expression blank. The emperor got the impression Prince Jing wasn't very happy about this. Could there really be a prince who was unhappy with being given responsibilities? But Prince Jing was just like that. He always remained unmoved in the face of humiliation or reward. If Prince Jing was anything like the second or third prince, he might as well be facing a crisis soon. It was a good thing he still had a capable son. It was just, no matter how capable he was, it wasn't enough to outweigh the biggest issue. He remembered how not long ago, after Prince Jing was born, the imperial physicians had already deemed him mute, unable to speak for the rest of his life. At that time, the physician had told the emperor something sincerely. It was likely this muteness would be passed on to his children. No matter how capable Prince Jing was, he couldn't carry on the heavy burden of the throne. The emperor couldn't select Prince Jing and doom the royal family. He thought about how, after his ascension to the throne, he had always placed an emphasis on a D son. He kept hoping a D son would be born, but of the D princes that Empress Xiaohui had given birth to, all 3 had faced disasters and bad luck. Perhaps it just wasn't part of his fate. The emperor sighed. Prince Sing accepted his new job, bade the emperor farewell, and returned to his manor. The emperor had probably given him this job to try to make up for doubting him. Though Prince Sing knew this, he wasn't particularly pleased. But when he pushed open the door and saw Xiao Yu, who had a weird lump of hair on his head, Prince Sing couldn't help but smile. "Your Highness, look!" Li Yu pointed to the hairpin in his hair. Prince Sing saw. The hairpin was a symbol of his feelings. Now that Xiao Yu was wearing it, did this mean he accepted his feelings? Prince Sing stood there, his emotions running wild. "Your Highness, there's more!" Li Yu sat down on the edge of the bed and waved him over. Thinking back to the time inside the carriage yesterday, the overwhelming tenderness, Prince Sing went a little red. Li Yu was calling to him from the bed. It was the middle of the day right now. Was he about to absorb essence? As long as Xiao Yu wanted it, anything was possible. Prince Sing sat down. Li Yu was blushing too. Before Prince Sing could grab his hand, Li Yu pulled out a piece of paper from his sleeve and said, smiling, "Let's lay down some rules, Your Highness." Chapter 64. Fish Boyfriend. "I thought about it," Li Yu said in a small voice, his face red. "I like Your Highness too. I want to be with you. But can you agree to a few things? If you can, then we can, try to be together." Although he had times when he was lost or difficult to deal with, or shy when he liked someone, being forthcoming was one of his virtues, and, well, the transformation was forcing his hand. He only had 2 hours a day, so he couldn't afford to hesitate. If he wanted something, he had to mention it now. Once they'd come to an agreement, they could start dating. Li Yu thought of the way Prince Sing took care of him and felt unusually confident. He held the page of writing up high so Prince Sing wouldn't miss a single word. He'd edited this agreement many times. Prince Sing taught him how to write before, so this time Li Yu tried not to make any mistakes and keep the paper clean. Even though he was using this to negotiate, he still wrote it very carefully and sincere. Meanwhile, hearing that Li Yu liked him back, Prince Sing's heart was blooming furiously. Although what Xiao Yu wanted wasn't exactly what he wanted, that didn't matter. Never mind a few things. He'd agreed to dozens or even hundreds of things. Prince Sing reached out and grabbed Li Yu's hand. He carefully rubbed away the ink Li Yu had accidentally gotten on his fingers. This small gesture made Li Yu's heart warm. He tickled Prince Sing's palm with the fingers Prince Sing had just rubbed clean. Gathering his courage, Li Yu held Prince Sing's hand and looked up at him, smiling. Prince Sing was trying to confirm over and over that Xiao Yu wouldn't run away in a fit of anger. He'd felt it in the carriage, but now that they'd said everything out loud, he still felt like this didn't seem quite real. Was he also afraid of losing him? Prince Sing burst into quiet laughter, patted Li Yu's head, and accepted the paper. The first line that he saw was, "Do not ask Li Yu to stay the night." He rubbed his forehead. Xiao Yu accepted him but still wouldn't absorb his essence? He was fine, but would it have an impact on Xiao Yu? All the ancient cultivation books spoke of being diligent, but Xiao Yu really only worked 3 out of 5 days. Li Yu was afraid of Prince Sing thinking he was putting up a front and hurried to explain. "It's not that we can't. We just have to wait for an appropriate time." He suddenly realized what was coming out of his mouth and immediately shut up. He blinked, his face red, trying to play dumb. Even so, Prince Sing immediately understood it wasn't completely impossible. Either way, I said no, so no," said Li Yu hastily. "If Your Highness doesn't agree, then let's not be together." When he heard Li Yu say, "let's," his heart swayed. He quickly snatched the paper back. It was too bad Li Yu couldn't absorb his essence, but he had Xiao Yu, and that was enough. Li Yu made a triumphant gesture when he wasn't looking. Everyone said whining to your boyfriend was very effective. Clearly, it was a pretty good trick. Li Yu agreed to the first condition. Continuing on to the second one. "Do not ask Li Yu where he's going." This one Prince Sing understood immediately. Xiao Yu only seemed to be able to maintain his human form for about 2 hours. Every time, he had to explain why he disappeared. Watching him fumble for all sorts of excuses, Each one faker than the last, Prince Ting struggled not to expose him. Xiao Yu was probably also tired of thinking up all those excuses as well, so he didn't want him to ask. It took too many brain cells, and keeping track of the lies wasn't easy. Prince Ting nodded, agreeing to this one too. Finally, the last condition. Do not get mad at Li Yu. Prince Ting chuckled. Xiao Yu was too worried. When had he ever gotten mad at Xiao Yu? Prince Ting agreed to all of them. One more, Li Yu said slyly. Your Highness said you didn't have any concubines before. Can you please maintain that? In the book, Prince Ting wasn't someone who would like multiple people at once, but the original plotline was already a mess, and Chu Yanyu turned out to be secretly quite sinister. What if Prince Ting turned out to be unfaithful? Although it wasn't likely, Li Yu didn't want any accidents to happen, so he steeled himself. If Prince Ting turned into a pig, then he'd break up with him. He hadn't written this condition down because Prince Ting had already said it himself and even engraved it onto the walls of the manor. Li Yu thought it was unnecessary to write it again and take up space in his agreement. So really, he'd taken advantage of Prince Ting a little bit. But Prince Ting nodded without any hesitation. Then, Your Highness, you have to remember them, Li Yu said, giggling. Can you memorize them? Prince Ting nodded again. He handed the paper back to Li Yu, went to the desk, and got out paper and a brush. Li Yu followed him over, rolled up his sleeves, and prepared to grind some ink for him. Prince Ting glanced up at Li Yu. Considering Xiao Yu's comprehension skills, he smiled and wrote down a silly little poem. Your decision to stay the night. Leave whenever you delight. With you I will never fight. I love only you in this life. Li Yu froze and immediately threw the ink stick to the side. His Highness was amazing, especially that last line. Now that he'd committed them all to memory, the next step was to kiss, hug, and shower him with affection, right? Li Yu threw himself at Prince Ting. Prince Ting was surprised, but still managed to catch Li Yu. With eyes full of tenderness, their lips slowly met. They wanted to put all of their gentleness, but also all of their passion into that one kiss and melt into each other until they were one. Prince Ting felt something lick the seam of his lips, and when he opened his eyes, Xiao Yu was smiling mischievously at him. Does it hurt? Li Yu touched his lips. Because of a misunderstanding, Li Yu had recently bitten Prince Ting's tongue. He wanted to make it up to him now. To be honest, doing that felt very exciting. The curious fish wanted to try. It was his boyfriend anyway, so kissing with tongue was very normal. Realizing what he wanted, Prince Ting picked Li Yu up excitedly. I just want a French kiss. What do you want to do? Li Yu's heart was thumping in his chest, afraid Prince Ting was about to break the rules they'd only just set. But instead, after holding him tightly for a while, Prince Ting put him down gently on the desk, then leaned in and kissed him carefully. Li Yu kissed him back enthusiastically. As he kissed him, he realized Prince Ting was much taller than him. Usually, when he kissed Prince Ting, he had to tilt his head up, which was slightly uncomfortable. Now that he was on the desk, they were eye to eye. As a result, kissing was also a lot easier. Prince Ting wanted him to relax. Li Yu suddenly realized that although Prince Ting couldn't speak and he constantly had to guess what his intentions were, sometimes even guessing wrong, the way Prince Ting doted on him never changed. Li Yu felt both moved and warm. He held onto Prince Ting's neck tightly, happily pressing his lips to the other man's. Very quickly, he was defeated by the warmth. As Li Yu latched onto Prince Ting like a koala, Prince Ting handed him something wrapped in bright yellow cloth. Li Yu opened it and took a glance. It was the Emperor's orders for Prince Ting to go to the Ministry of Works for a job. Li Yu was a little shocked. This didn't happen in the original book. Later, when Prince Ting and the Sixth Prince were fighting, he was supposed to enter the court through the Ministry of Works. But right now, the Sixth Prince was still recovering from his injuries. As far as he could tell, Prince Ting didn't seem to have any intentions of going for the throne yet. Li Yu realized this might just be the Emperor having great expectations for Prince Ting. The Prince of this world would not face too many disasters. He'd try to help him. This is a good thing. Congratulations, Your Highness, Li Yu said, smiling, but he had no idea why Prince Ting was showing him the edict. Prince Ting was actually unhappy that he'd only just started a relationship with Xiao Yu and was now conscripted to go to work. I can't spend a lot of time with you anymore, he thought, but he was unable to say it. Li Yu thought it over and realized what he meant. He smiled. Since your highness has a job now, you should do your best. I won't go anywhere. I'll wait for you here in the manor. When you get your monthly salary, you can buy me a present. Li Yu was full of words of encouragement, imagining himself as a stay-at-home boyfriend, walking his boyfriend to work every day and cheering him on. After all, Prince Sing had a lot of serious business to attend to on top of being in a relationship. Prince Sing had to go work at the Ministry of Works now. Later on, when he ascended to the throne, he'd have to worry about all sorts of important national matters. Unlike him, apart from completing quests, all he had to do was swim around in leisure as a pet fish. It was like he'd entered retirement early, but he was only 18. Li Yu rubbed his nose. Maybe he should do his best and try to make his boyfriend a heart bento? With Xiao Yu's encouragement, Prince Sing gathered himself and started to report to the Ministry of Works on time every morning. The Ministry of Works was the least important ministry out of the 6, responsible for water conservation and civil engineering. Taking into account the fact that Prince Sing would have a hard time communicating, the emperor gave him the job of repairing Zhongshui Palace after it had been damaged in the fire. The blueprint for Zhongshui Palace was in storage. He just had to fix it according to the plans. It would be difficult to mess up. Prince Sing was a prince, and he would be able to command authority with his personality. But the emperor still found him someone to help him with the task, afraid that he would be overwhelmed with his first job. Deputy Minister Zheng Jing was very capable. He'd already received the emperor's orders ahead of time and was ready to assist Prince Sing at any time. By doing this, the emperor was making it easy for Prince Sing. After Prince Sing arrived at the Ministry of Works, the first thing he did was put down a huge pack he was carrying. Deputy Minister Zheng Jing came to bow at him with a smile. He'd heard a lot about Prince Sing and wanted to have a good relationship with him. "Your Highness," he said curiously, "what did you bring?" Wang Xi usually followed Prince Sing, but he wasn't supposed to be in places of business, so Prince Sing picked up the brush on the table and wrote, "Lunch." Zheng Jing laughed awkwardly. So, it was the prince's lunch. This pack was larger than a basin. What kind of lunch did it hold? But seeing Prince Sing's impassive expression, Zheng Jing could tell his personality was a little aloof and cold, so he probably didn't want him to pry anymore. And so, despite all his questions, he didn't ask anything more. After Prince Sing finished writing the word lunch, he paused, but Zheng Jing didn't ask any further. Prince Sing was a little dissatisfied, so he carefully wrote in slightly larger words under lunch, "My boyfriend made it." With great difficulty, Zheng Jing asked, "Boyfriend?" Prince Sing nodded. Xiao Yu had specially taught him this word from his home. Xiao Yu said when two people liked each other the way they did, it was called dating. Xiao Yu was his boyfriend, and he was also Xiao Yu's boyfriend. Prince Sing liked this form of address. He guessed that the carp spirit must be from some sort of immortal mountain, and this must mean he now saw him as family. Prince Sing felt very happy. Zheng Jing thought about it for a while, but still didn't know what a boyfriend was supposed to be. So he could only ask Prince Sing, "Your Highness, what does boyfriend mean?" Prince Sing narrowed his eyes. There was no way he'd let Zheng Jing know about the carp spirit's mountain. But he had an alternate explanation. It was still Xiao Yu, either way. Prince Sing wrote, "My future consort." Zheng Jing's expression kept changing. Prince Sing already had a consort? How come he didn't know? Future consort. Well, that was easier to understand than boyfriend. How should he respond? "Well, congratulations, Your Highness," he stammered. Prince Sing finally nodded, satisfied. Zheng Jing secretly wiped away sweat. Then he saw Prince Sing take something else out of his large sleeves and set it down on the table. It was a clear bottle, and inside was a silver fish with flecks of gold. It was swimming around in the bottle happily. Zheng Jing thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Swallowing, he asked, hesitating, "Your Highness, did you bring a koi with you?" Prince Sing wrote proudly, "My pet fish." What? Why would anyone bring a fish to work? Zheng Jing couldn't understand. Once he'd seen Prince Ting personally feeding the fish a piece of peach blossom pastry from a white jade box, Jing shut up completely. Liu, who was currently munching on a pastry, yelled in his head. I really fell for this asshole's tricks. Walking my boyfriend to work? Why did this jerk have to bring his fish to work too? What happened to being a stay-at-home boyfriend? Now, in his human form, he had to date Prince Ting and prepare lunch for him, and in his fish form, he had to go to work with him. Sob, sob, sob. He wanted to start his early retirement where he was always being taken care of. Chapter 65. Touching Fish While on the Clock. There was no rush on fixing Zhongshui Palace. Prince Ting first followed Zheng Jing around and familiarized himself with the rules and regulations of the Ministry of Works. He needed to reference Zhongshui's palace blueprint, so Zheng Jing already had someone find it and bring it to Prince Ting. Prince Ting spread open the blueprint, and Zheng Jing prepared himself to answer questions at any moment. After all, Prince Ting had never been in charge of anything similar. When Zheng Jing had first come to the Ministry of Works, he also didn't understand anything. But Prince Ting didn't ask him anything. He just focused on the blueprint and occasionally noted something down on the side. From Zheng Jing's angle, he couldn't see what Prince Ting was writing, but he noticed that when Prince Ting opened the blueprint, the silver koi inside the bottle had also swum closer, pressing against the side closest to Prince Ting's hand. From this angle, it looked like the koi had stopped right on top of Prince Ting's hand. Zheng Jing almost felt like the koi was looking at the blueprint with Prince Ting. Why would he think that? It's not like the koi was a spirit. The little carp who'd been mistaken as a spirit thought, "Ah, here it is. I want to see what my boyfriend looks like when he's working." Liu had seen Prince Ting read, write, and paint, but he'd never seen Prince Ting work. Liu was also curious about what ancient blueprints looked like, so he kept trying to inch forward. Prince Ting knew Xiao Yu was getting interested and was afraid the fish had forgotten he was in a bottle and might break it again, so he silently moved the blueprint toward the fish a little and continued to study it, brows knitted together. My boyfriend is so hot when he's concentrating. Liu appreciated Prince Ting's handsome profile for a while, blew him a kiss from afar, then stretched out his neck to look at the blueprint. He was a little excited. What if he picked up on something and could help Prince Ting? There were many little houses drawn on the blueprint. Liu couldn't tell how they were different from each other. Many of them also had notes underneath. The text was smaller than a fish's eye, which made Liu's head hurt. As it turned out, there was no what if. The blueprint would learn to read him before he was going to figure this out. Liu sighed. Well, that was that. When Prince Ting got to the key parts, he suddenly seemed to understand something. Looking back, he saw the fish lying at the edge of the bottle, also staring at the blueprint. Xiao Yu likes to look at blueprints? But in the next second, the fish who liked to look at blueprints sank to the bottom of the bottle. Prince Ting chuckled to himself. Turns out he didn't like it after all. Xiao Yu had fallen asleep again. He thought back to how Xiao Yu had gotten up early this morning to make him lunch, and his heart felt fuzzy and warm. He couldn't help but reach over to pet the fish. He did this when he was reading in his manner as well, so Prince Ting didn't think it was a big deal. Xiao Yu blew a bubble. Even though he was sleeping, his tail still drifted over to wrap around his finger, though a little lazily. Prince Ting couldn't help but smile. Prince Ting. Zheng Jing, who worked in the same room and had already witnessed everything, coughed awkwardly. Prince Ting looked up at Zheng Jing with his deep gaze. Zheng Jing considered his words carefully and urged him quietly. Prince Ting, you can't pet your fish on the clock. What? Prince Ting glared at Zheng Jing coldly, then went back to studying the blueprint. He had a habit of writing down notes while he was reading. When there was something he was confused about, he didn't try to ask Zheng Jing immediately. He just made a note. Since he couldn't speak, asking would take a long time. His productivity would go down if he had to constantly interrupt his line of thought and then pick it back up again like that. So Prince Ting read through the whole blueprint first, then collected all his questions for Zheng Jing at the end. Zheng Jing glanced over at Prince Ting every once in a while. He was quite surprised at the prince's patience. When he'd had to take responsibility and remind Prince Ting not to pet his fish, he'd clearly offended Prince Ting. If the prince really wanted to treat him rudely because of it, Zheng Jing would have to take it, because, after all, His Highness was a prince, and he was just a subject. But Zheng Jing didn't regret it. This was just how he was. He wanted to get along with Prince Ding, but when it came to work, he wouldn't make exceptions for anybody. Zheng Jing disapproved of Prince Ding petting his fish. Aside from helping Prince Ding, the emperor had given him another job. He had to report back on how Prince Ding was doing in the Ministry of Works. Zheng Jing had already planned out what he was going to say, prepared to ask the emperor for his forgiveness. He didn't think Prince Ding was suitable for this job. Prince Ding had brought his pet fish to the Ministry of Works, a clear sign the prince wasn't taking the job seriously. Wasting time petting his fish was also definitive proof Prince Ding wasn't really completing his work, Zheng Jing thought. But after Prince Ding was done with the blueprint, he thrust a bunch of notes at him. When Zheng Jing looked at the dense writing, he was shocked. All the questions Prince Ding had written down were extremely perceptive. After only a single round of questions, Lord Zheng was sweating bullets. Before, he was a little worried because he was afraid Prince Ding might have just come here to mess around. Now, he was sweating because he was afraid he wouldn't be able to answer Prince Ding's questions. Zheng Jing couldn't help but recall how the third prince had also been assigned to the Ministry of Works a few years ago. But the Ministry of Works dealt with a bunch of construction workers day in and day out. The third prince thought it was both dirty and not very respectable, so he was very unhappy. It was called a job, but he just drank tea at the Ministry of Works for a few days. In the end, the Ministry of Works wrote to the emperor, telling him delicately that the third prince was not suited for this job. As a result, the emperor moved the third prince elsewhere. In comparison, although Prince Ding's personality was a little odd and he liked to pet fish, just based on how he would sit down and concentrate on the blueprint, he was already leagues ahead of the other princes. Zheng Jing's opinion of Prince Ding had changed. He decided not to write to the emperor to say Prince Ding wasn't suitable after all. He even thought it was a pity Prince Ding couldn't talk. With this kind of attitude, Prince Ding was someone who could settle down and accomplish something. "Your Highness," Zheng Jing said gently, "if you have any questions in the future, don't hesitate to ask me. If I can't answer it, you can ask the minister." Prince Ding nodded. Since he was done with the blueprint, he could play with his fish now. Despite Zheng Jing's piercing gaze, Prince Ding put the fish into a lotus bowl he'd brought along and started really petting the fish in earnest. Zheng Jing truly didn't know what to say. At lunchtime, Prince Ding opened his huge pack and took out an equally huge food box. There were 3 large bowls inside. Prince Ding opened each bowl. Zheng Jing, who sat not far away, saw a bowl of burnt rice, a bowl of dark black stuff that he couldn't identify, and another bowl of what looked like soft wilted cucumber. Interested, he asked, "Your Highness, what manner of cuisine did you bring?" As soon as he'd said it, he realized no one would pick up a brush while eating. There was no way Prince Ding would respond. He might even be upset. But Prince Ding was in a good mood. Not only was he not upset, he even took out 2 pieces of paper from his sleeve and handed them to Zheng Jing. What? When did Prince Ding prepare these pieces of paper? Did he know he would ask? There were 2 dishes, 1 paper for each. Zheng Jing read the notes that said, "Minced meat and eggplant made by my boyfriend, and smashed cucumber made by my boyfriend." Ah, so the thing he couldn't identify was minced meat eggplant. Were there really eggplants as black as coal? Zheng Jing refused to comment on the future consort's cooking skills. But not only had Prince Ding prepared the notes, ready to introduce his boyfriend's cooking at any time, he even ate all 3 bowls without batting an eye. Zheng Jing, after witnessing this display of affection, said, "Your Highness certainly has a good relationship with your consort." Prince Ding dipped his hand slightly into the bottle, nodding subtly as he touched the little carp's slippery back. The fish, who had woken up from his nap, was quite delighted. Oh, was he praising him? He'd gotten up early this morning to make both dishes, and he'd also made the rice. Although the eggplant had turned black for some reason, and the rice got a little burnt, it should still taste all right. And the smashed cucumber, Prince Ding's favorite. Liu suddenly thought he should actually taste his own cooking. Maybe there'd been a huge improvement. While Zheng Jing wasn't paying attention, he swam directly to the opening of the bottle. Prince Ding's bowls weren't too far away. Liu decided to try and steal a little piece of eggplant from Prince Ding's bowl. It was a vegetable, so a fish could eat it, right? Oh, God. Prince Ting was well aware of the particular flavor of these dishes. Afraid that Xiao Yu would be shocked by the taste, he hurriedly ate all the eggplant in the bowl, as well as all of the cucumber. He didn't leave behind a single grain of rice. Li Yu was ecstatic. His cooking must have really improved. Otherwise, why would Prince Ting eat it so fast and not let him have any? He started to think about other dishes. He was a useful boyfriend. He couldn't help Prince Ting when it came to blueprints, but he could help Prince Ting by cooking for him. The fish finally calmed down, and Prince Ting, unaware that increasingly cursed bentos were waiting for him in the future, sighed in relief. The news of the emperor ordering Prince Ting to begin working eventually made its way to the third prince, making him a little restless. Mu Tianming had asked a few officials to ask the emperor to forgive him and give him something to do, but instead, the emperor ignored his request and went to Prince Ting. What could a mute do? The emperor would rather rely on a mute than on him? But no matter how displeased Mu Tianming was, he couldn't act on impulse. Oh, now you want to think. The emperor clearly wasn't happy with him right now. Both his injuries and those of the sixth prince were mostly recovered now. The emperor had let the sixth prince go already, but Mu Tianming still had to go study every day and write down the classic of filial piety. He was burning with anxiety. If he continued like this, how was he going to reassure the officials who were on his side? Going to the imperial study room every day, he could tell the emperor was already starting to train the two young princes. Even their previous teacher had been swapped out for the emperor's own teacher. The emperor was so biased. He was ranking him behind both the young princes and Prince Ting. Mu Tianming couldn't take it anymore. He complained to the sixth prince, who had come to visit. "Brother, don't forget what happened to you last time," Mu Tianxiao reminded him in a gentle voice. "You should calm down first. Father wants to see your attitude improve. If you don't make any more mistakes, Father won't ignore you for long. Don't worry, you still have me. I'll keep an eye out for you." Mu Tianming cheered up immensely. The sixth prince was right. Besides, the sixth prince had been with him for many years now and was extremely trustworthy. Last time he chose not to listen to the sixth prince, he'd suffered a huge setback, which only made the third prince trust the sixth prince even more. "I feel a lot better with you here," said Mu Tianming. "I can give you authority over a large portion of my people. Help me take care of things." Mu Tianming took out a token representing his authority, hesitated for a moment, and handed it to the sixth prince. The sixth prince accepted it. No matter how much he wanted this, he couldn't let it show on his face. He thanked the third prince evenly, saying that he appreciated the opportunity and would do everything he could to repay this honor. Putting away the token, the sixth prince walked out calmly under the third prince's watchful eye. After leaving the manor, Mu Tianxiao looked up at the sky, his mood soaring. He knew the heavy clouds above his head were about to dissipate. Once he had all the third prince's people in his control, he could finally stop hiding. Woo! All right, you guys, we have finished reading these chapters. 60 through 65? Man, a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, and I'll work my way backwards. So, the first thing that I'm going to say is I try not to make too much commentary like while I'm reading. I know there are a lot of people I've seen on YouTube videos that will read and then stop to say their 2 cents. Ultimately, I try not to do that and just save everything for the end. But one of the things that I wanted to say while it was actually here on this last page was actually with Mu Tianming handing over his token of authority. When I read that he hesitated for a moment, I was like, even though the paragraphs before just said you trusted him and everything, your hesitation, whether that's like intuition or whatever it is, you should really follow that instinct, because you have no idea how devious the sixth prince really is. But anyway, you just handed him the keys to the kingdom, whatever that kingdom is. But, we'll see what it is. Also, with him saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be impulsive this time," it's like, sir, you shouldn't have been impulsive, period. And yeah, you did not listen to the sixth prince and you got yourself in even more trouble. So sucks for you, but it is what it is. So going to my next thing about this Prince Mu Tianming, I'm just trying to understand from his perspective and even kind of sort of the emperor's. even though I can definitely understand the Emperor a bit better. Even if muteness is a disability, it's not a mental disability. Well, actually, okay, that's not necessarily true because selective mutism is a mental thing. But anyway, he's just mute. He's not incapable. He's not an idiot. So when Mu Tianming was like, oh my gosh, the Emperor would rather rely on him, what can he do? I was just like, sir, do you think your brother is an idiot? Because he's not. Not at all. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. So let's just move forward. So yay! Prince Ting and Li Yu are finally together, but like, okay, Li Yu, those rules are ridiculous. Like, I don't know. I think I'm over this oblivious trope. Because to me, how easily Prince Ting accepted them was another alert in my brain if I were Li Yu. Because in reality, those requests, other than the one of no staying the night, were completely unreasonable. If you were to start dating someone, and he's from modern times, so he should know this, but if you start dating someone and tell them, don't ask me where I'm going or where I've been, ain't no way in the world we getting away with that. Like, hold up. And then it's saying, like, you can't get mad at Liu. Like, excuse you? Getting mad is something people are going to do, whether it's big mad or little mad or medium mad. Like, at some point, you are going to do something to upset him. What do you mean he can't get mad at you? But whatever. The fact that he agreed to those things so easily, especially considering his position, he's a prince. To me, I'm just like, Liu, like, come on, my guy. Can you not see that he's being so amenable because he knows your secret? Like, I'm ready for the cat to be out of the bag, for the bunny to be out of the hat, whatever, because I just need that. So that's just a little thing that's upsetting me about this writing, this story so far. But anyway, I digress. I want to talk about something that I noticed on page 252, which was basically, hold on, let me flip to it. Oh yeah, when Liu was like, he was a participant of the book itself, this meant now he was completely part of the world, part of Prince Ting's life, but before, he was like a bystander, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, look at you having your Shan Qingqiu moment, because, sir, you've always been a part of this world ever since you transmigrated. There was nothing that this moped system said to you about completing the missions here would make you go back to your old life. No, you here for life, my guy, or for your death, life, whatever. And the only thing you're trying to get to is from being this fish to a human. But you are here. I just think it's always funny. And I wonder if the same thing would happen to us, like if transmigration was an actual thing in reality, if we would all do the same thing, just having that moment where we separate ourselves from the content or from the life because we've read the book, and so our brains are like, okay, this isn't actually real, this isn't actually happening, even though everything feels real and everything is happening. I just wonder how that would work out in real life. But anyway, I thought it was so funny when Liu was going through his thought process and was like, oh, I do like Prince Ting. How did it take me so long to realize it? I was like, my guy. From the very first moment that you you kissed him or tried to kiss him, but from that moment that you were in the tub with him and you were looking at him and you were like, ooh, it's hot in here. Must be the water. Sir, it was clear you were a lost cause, but okay. I'm glad you finally realized it. That's nice. And I'm glad that after he realized it, he didn't take a century or whatever to get things moving. Because a lot of times in certain other danmei, you have this character who basically doesn't want to be homosexual, or they kind of shy away from it because it's shameful or this isn't right or blah, blah, blah. And I know there may be other aspects about it too, like in Scum Villain Self-Saving System, there was also the aspect of like, I'm your Shutsun, so that's like not cool. But there's always just like this hesitancy from one of the characters. And I love that Liu was like, no, we don't need that. I'm okay if I'm bi. I'm okay if I'm gay. Whichever one it is, I like you. So yeah, just give me a second to think, to gather my thoughts, and then boom, turn around the next day like, okay, we can do this, but here's some ground rules. Okay. So I really did appreciate that. Oh, apparently I just have a note here because I was really upset. This is what happens when you go backwards. On page 250, when his time was running out after their date, and he was about to get out of the carriage, and Prince Sing was like, "No, I'll go," basically. Even though Wang Xi ended up coming up with a feasible excuse or whatever, I was like, come on, Li Yu. This is a dead giveaway. This is a clear sign that he knows that you're a fish. Come on, my guy. Anyway, I'm glad that their date went well, and I even thought it was nice that they got to spend it like a double date. That was so cute. That was so nice. But speaking of double dates, Ye Qinghuan, I need you to stop making everything a competition with Prince Sing. Y'all are cousins, not brothers. I don't know, because I didn't grow up really with family like that. Do cousins compete on a regular basis? Is that a thing cousins do? Because if so, then okay, I get it. But they're not even siblings. So like, why are you competing with Prince Sing and everything? And need I remind you again, he is a prince. Prince, not prince, but prince. So that means in a lot of different areas, he's just gonna one up you, period. But come on. Regardless of the cute affections and shamelessness he's got with Li Yu when, he kissed him or whatever, my guy, your fiance is the most beautiful woman. She rivals the beauties everywhere. She's probably even more beautiful than Li Yu, so like just cherish that and be happy, because you can, even though Prince Sing would not care at all, I'm sure, you can just revel in the fact that your beloved is more beautiful than his beloved. Like, that's your winning point right there. Come on, my guy. So anyway, the last thing that I want to say, which is about page 235, when Ye Qinghuan and the princess of Jinjue arrived at the restaurant, and Li Yu was like, oh my gosh, was being gay contagious? I mean, it turned out that it was the princess of Jinjue, but part of me was actually kind of shocked. And I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people don't know the history of the places that they live in, especially when it comes to certain categories or topics that you might not care about. But historically speaking, homosexuality was very common in ancient China. Li Yu, do you not know this? Why do I know this, but you don't? It was such a common thing. There were plenty of poems written about it as well. And even the legend of the cut sleeve and like the origin of where that story comes from and all that. Oh man, so cool. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We will see what happens with these next couple of chapters. I'm trying to make it to where there are only 2 videos left by reading, 5 chapters for the next 2, but we'll just see, because I have a very, very busy work weekend for this this art event. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, because I have tomorrow to read and then Friday, but I'm going to be exhausted on Friday. So anyway, at the latest, this story will be done probably Wednesday of next week. And then, I mean, not the story, the volume. And then we'll be moving on to volume 3. So that's very exciting. You guys, we are almost done with this one, this volume. Isn't that exciting? Like literally just a little bit over 100 pages left. If I were not reading this out loud, I would definitely finish this tonight. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to say is I'm planning on, of course, finishing the 3rd volume from basically mid-March to the end of March. And then, of course, we have the final book that comes in on March 25th. So if something happens and we actually finish the series, the 3rd volume before I get the 4th volume in, then there'll just be a couple of quiet days. Hopefully you guys can rest and enjoy life. Anyway, I definitely feel like I'm rambling. See, this is why I put all my thoughts at the end. That way, during the reading process, people don't have to keep skipping past me saying random things. But if you don't want to listen at the end, then you can just be like, I'm out of here. Yeah, I need to go to bed. So I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. Please, please, please share your thoughts in the comment section. I've been getting a lot more engagement from you guys, and I thoroughly appreciate it. I love seeing your comments, whether short or medium length, or some are actually quite lengthy, but I love it. So have a great day or a great evening. I'll see you all next time. 我爱你们.